Haha, getting all these hearts. I'm gonna get the highest score in the game in Super Great. Oh. I guess old ladies probably shouldn't use jackhammers on the moon. Oh, Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. I am your festive host, Klay-Kremling. And welcome to a Klay-Kremling K-Rismas. It looks like after these past couple years, I finally get to spend the holidays with you guys. Now, as you can tell, I'm pumped. We've got snow all over the table. I'm wearing this stupid hat. But most importantly, it's time to talk about yet another game that's been lost to the ages. You wouldn't believe it if I told you, but this game is Super Granny. Yeah, you thought Super Cow was unorthodox? Well, meet Super Granny. Let me ask you guys something. Have you ever lived next to an old woman with cats for pets? Well, apparently the geniuses over at Sandlot Games thought that this would be the perfect premise for their next big video game franchise. And I have to say, to Sandlot's credit, it works. Super Granny is a series of strategy games revolving around an old woman who goes on huge quests to save her thousands of cats. So, what exactly makes this franchise so special above all else? Well, you see, out of all the desktop games that I played when I was a little kid, most of them were only one-offs. World of Goo, Super Cow, Sheep's Quest, The Tuttle's Mad Cat Misadventures. Yeah, don't worry, I'll get to this one. But out of all of my games, only select titles were part of franchises. For example, the Wonderland series, Super Granny, Morhan apparently, and Chicken Invaders. Yeah, don't worry, I'll get to this one too. And trust me, when I say Super Granny is a franchise, it is a franchise, featuring no less than 6 games. Are you kidding me? They made 6 Super Granny games? Huh, well, I'll be. Who would have thought that Super Granny would be such a big hit? I mean, I don't know how well it did financially, but it must have done well enough for them to make 6 games, and Sandlot Games stopped operating back in 2011. So who knows? Maybe they would have kept going. And apparently, 6 Super Granny games weren't enough to please the fans, with the production of the fan-made Super Granny 7. Although the game was never finished, that doesn't change the fact that it was still attempted to begin with. Damn, looks like no one can stop the titan that is Super Granny. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're in good hands. With a legacy like this, we must be in for some top-of-the-line entertainment. So, let's get started. Now, to eliminate any potential confusion, let me just give you a little bit of context for the Super Granny game we are about to play. This is not the first Super Granny game. I never played the original because I could never find it. For God's sakes, it was hard enough to find a decent quality picture of it on the web. But from what I've seen, I don't think I'm missing much. As for the next installment, it had 2 different versions. Super Granny Winter Wonderland and Granny in Paradise. Now, despite both games being very similar at its core, I grew up with the Winter Wonderland version, so I decided to review that one instead. Now, with that out of the way, let's begin. Well, primitive. Alright, this is it. New player. Klay-Kremling shall join the Super Granny Hall of Fame. Ugh, not again. So Super Granny is returning from a vacation with her cats. And while she was there, she made a new friend. And it just so happens that this new friend is an evil genius named Dr. Meow. Long story short, they crash land on a ski resort and our adventure begins.
Anywho, I have begun rebuilding my evil robotic army of cats. Ooh, maybe I need a massage first. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we'll come back to this. And now our grand adventure can begin. You see, after the plane crash, Super Granny's cats have been scattered all over the resort. And we, of course, have to save every single one. Ugh, are you kidding me? I don't even like cats, let alone have to travel a frozen resort to save thousands of them. Seriously, this old woman has so many cats, I wouldn't be surprised if she let them all live in her mansion while she sleeps outside. Well, anyway, the goal of every level is to collect all the cats and bring them to this Meow Gate or something. I really don't know what it is, but who cares? It rescues them. And once all of the cats on the level are rescued, the exit flower will appear. And the only thing left to do is end the level.
Bingo!
Ah, lovely. Now, other than saving cats, this game heavily emphasizes on getting a high score, and yeah, this game really doubles down on it. Now, I don't necessarily have anything against getting high scores, but I think it's safe to say that most people don't really care about them. Well, unless they're playing on a public arcade machine. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that Super Granny definitely harkens back to the days of arcade games. And you know what? It's pretty fun. Super Granny herself feels good to control. She moves just fast enough to keep ahead of bad guys, the use of ladders make her feel nice and mobile, and Super Granny's native weapon, the gardening shovel, is implemented just right to work your way through levels and fend off enemies. But at the same time, it's limited enough to keep Super Granny from feeling overpowered. Cause sometimes you might not be able to dig fast enough before the enemies get you. And trust me, if Super Granny gets caught by an enemy, she falls and she won't get up. Remember, Super Granny is super, but she's still a frail old woman. Now, before I talk about these levels a bit more in depth, there's one thing we need to get out of the way. The enemies. There are only 3 different kind of enemies in this game. Man, only 3? That's almost as bad as Moorhun, Jewel of Darkness, or Beetlebug 2. Well, anyway, our first type of enemies are these gnome men? Yeah, I guess gnomes are evil in this universe. There's also these Dalmatians, the only enemies that can't climb up ladders. You know, I have to admit, they're pretty cute. I mean, yeah, they attack you and kill you in cold blood, but come on, who can resist that face? But then, there are the ultimate bad guys. The gorillas. These gorillas, that look like Wreck-It Ralph, are my least favorite part about the whole game. You know how in Pac-Man, the ghosts are always trying to trick you into getting cornered? Well, here, it's nothing like that. These gorillas just chase the hell out of you. And every time you move, their AI has already thought of the fastest way to catch you possible. Now, the same could kinda be said for the gnomes, but at least the gnomes are slower. Plus, they're not able to climb on the icicles. The gorillas, on the other hand, they climb away. And there are levels in this game that are just completely overloaded with gorillas. So much so that there's a level literally called Gorilla Overload. I'm surprised, this game's actually pretty hard. Or maybe I just suck at the game, I don't know. Now, I was playing this game on Super Granny mode, so out of curiosity, I tried easy mode a few times. From what I can tell, they're both pretty much the same thing. The only discernible difference is Super Granny mode starts you off with 5 lives, whereas easy mode starts you off with 10. Well, I suppose that means I won't be getting as many game overs, but it's still not exactly what I would call an easy mode. Fortunately, you can incapacitate enemies by growing these red faces with big teeth. You see, when the enemies fall in holes, eventually the dirt grows back and they just respawn. But these red plants, on the other hand, hold them for the whole level. Well, unless you die. Alright, next level.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Wait, what? Did you just see that? They start you off right next to a gorilla? Well, that's not fair. You would have to know ahead of time that you'd need to be moving to the right as soon as the level begins. And this isn't the last time some bullshit like this happens. In this level, you have to teleport to the higher ground without the Dalmatian being too close. But how would you know ahead of time whether or not you'd be teleported to the left or the right? This could be considered a nitpick, but it still bothered me nonetheless. Well, now that we're halfway through the game, it's time for an update on the story. So Dr. Meow is trying to turn Super Granny's cats into killing machines by making them play violent video games. Man, what is this, a news channel?
I'm setting up a temporary headquarters in the ice caves, where she'll never find me. So, how's my evil empire? Give me a call when you get this message. Bye-bye.
Yeah, after 50 levels, that's all we get. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the ice caves. Let's get a move on. We have an evil cat to stop. Now that we're entering the later half of the game, I've started to notice a weird phenomenon. You know how some video games have crazy difficulty spikes? Well, that happens here, except instead of getting too hard too fast, it actually gets too easy. Like at the beginning of the game, I was struggling quite a bit. Mostly because the abundance of gorilla levels. But still, it was pretty challenging nonetheless. And the levels themselves were very open and spontaneous. The second half of the game, on the other hand, the levels feel confined and claustrophobic and like the developers were running out of ideas. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't have its moments, I just get the sense that these last few dozen levels were more of an afterthought. In my opinion, the best Super Granny levels are the ones that encourage the player to use a combination of puzzle solving and strategy in order to succeed. Solving a level while also outsmarting danger leads to a very satisfying and rewarding game experience, which is why the worst Super Granny levels are just drawn out, boring, grindy levels that you already know how are going to play out before you've even started moving Super Granny yet. Take this for example. Level 69, Double is Trouble. You pick up a bomb, you walk it to the rock, you wait for it to blow up, then you have to go back and get another bomb. Then you put it at the next rock and wait for that to blow up. You have to blow up almost every single rock on the stage! Who thought that this was a good idea? And you see guys, that's kind of the biggest problem with this game. Despite having all of the mechanics of a Super Granny game, the level designs themselves don't do it a whole lot of justice most of the time. Everything else about this game is good. The art style, the voices, the theming. It's mainly execution where Super Granny Winter Wonderland tends to slip up. Okay, I've ranted long enough, let's just finish this. After plenty of hard work, perseverance, and hard work, we're just about ready to wrap up our adventure. I like how on level 98 it says don't give up. Yeah, right. Like I'm gonna come all this way just to give up on level 98. Am I going completely mad? Or is that Super Granny in her summer dress? I don't really know what to make of this, but I guess they just thought no one would notice. Now, you would think that a game like this would end on a high note, a happy ending, something to set us at ease so we can rest easy tonight. Well, guess what? Super Granny doesn't ass around, because instead, just when all is well in the world, disaster strikes. So Super Granny finally catches up with Dr. Meow, and you know what? It's nice. Well, Dr. Meow doesn't like her very much, but who cares? She's got all of her cats back. And just when we think we've found the land of milk and honey, a mysterious, shadowy figure shows up.
Ooh, wait, what was that?
We're sorry,
Dr. Meow.
is not in service. Please check the number or try your call again. This is a recording.
And so, Super Granny 2 ends on a cliffhanger. Will our heroes make it out of this kerfuffle alive? Well, all of these questions will be answered on the next Super Granny adventure. But in the meantime, Super Granny Winter Wonderland ends with a trifle of mystery. And so, that wraps up Super Granny Winter Wonderland. And boy, this is a strange one. I don't consider this a bad game, but is it dated? Well, yeah, it is. Despite the flaws, it's still fun to go back to see where the Super Granny series begun. And of course, that experience comes with seeing how the games have aged as well. And yeah, this is certainly one of the more dated titles. I would imagine some of your heads are spinning right now, seeing as I was so negative for most of this review. But you see guys, this is going to be the beauty about revisiting these Super Granny games. To see how they evolve over time, from the first installments to the final game in the series. Hell, I may have played almost every Super Granny game, but I've only actually beaten 2 of them. So I'm excited to experience the full series in the future, with the purpose of reviewing them. And with that said, it's time to give one of the earlier entries in the series a place in the Klay-Kremling horde. Well, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for the next episode, where we will take on Super Granny 3. Now don't worry, I'm not going to dedicate the next 5 episodes to reviewing Super Granny games. I'm just going to talk about Super Granny 3, and then I'll put a pin on it for now. Well actually, maybe I could also talk about Granny in Paradise just for kicks. Oh. Well, fuck that idea.